All right, welcome to Temple of Geeks Who Review, a Doctor Who inspired podcast for fans of the long running British science fiction television series. I'm your host, Elizabeth. And, here at Temple of Geeks Doctor Who Review, we are massive Doctor Who fans, and we're here to talk about all things Doctor Who. Throughout our series, we'll be discussing the latest episodes, classic series, spin offs, and everything in between. We'll also bring you interviews with people who've worked in and around the show, behind the scenes information, and all sorts of other Doctor Who related fun, or I guess this week, not amazing news, but still something we want to discuss. So whether you're a longtime fan or just getting started, we hope you'll join us for the ride. As I said, today we will be discussing the news that the Doctor Who and Disney partnership is no longer going forward, which is we'll talk about it. But first, Monica, can you introduce yourself as you are our guest this week?
Hi, everybody. My name is Monica. I am the editor-in-chief at Temple of Geek, and I'm also a producer on this podcast. I edit this podcast, put it up on social media, stuff like that. And I am filling in for Nate today because he is unavailable.
Yep. But it's always great having you. You've been on a couple times before, I think. So,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
yeah.
I can't remember now.
Yeah. Or at the very least, I've done podcast episodes with you before. Just in case somehow you are listening to this podcast and you have not heard the news, as I said, the BBC did announce last week that the Disney deal is no more. They will be looking for a new home for the show outside of the UK. And it's been an interesting week seeing the reactions and processing my own reactions to it. What was kind of like your first reaction to seeing that news?
I try to take a beat and not react right away and just kind of like process the information before I say anything outside of our immediate group chats and things like that. But I think it was October the 28th when they announced it. We're here November the 6th now. And my main takeaway is that it is disappointing, but it is not surprising. I also kind of wrote an article about it, just kind of talking about how I really felt that this was a missed opportunity for Disney. And I think that the metrics for what is a successful show and what should stay around long term are kind of weird in this age of streaming. Like I said, I'm not surprised that they dropped Doctor Who. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, that was kind of my reaction too. I might have posted more immediately than perhaps I should have. I don't think I said anything wrong, but I think my first post that I made after the news dropped was something along the lines of, "Was this also Bob? How could Ben Solo possibly be a live Iger?" Um, which might be a little mean, but also that's a whole other discussion. I am upset about the Ben Solo movie, but yeah, same thing. I'm disappointed. I know there's some people who are like celebrating this for one reason or another. I'm not sure I understand those reasons, but both between it felt like Disney and Doctor Who were a good match because Doctor Who is not a kids show, it's not an adult show, it's a family show, which we don't have a ton of in the States, but Disney is like a family company where they do stuff for kids, they do stuff for adults. It's good to have that in between as well, which I think Doctor Who could have really filled in for them. And I'm also really disappointed for all the fans who, are going to lose access to the show, at least legally, because, who knows what the distribution deal is going to look like if they're not able to find another global partner. A lot of people are now not going to have access to the show, and I think that's really sad, and I feel bad for those people.
Absolutely. And I think that that's kind of leads into that whole missed opportunity part. It would have been incredible, especially since at the end of August, HBO released the episodes of Doctor Who. They no longer were carrying those episodes exclusively on their platform. I don't know if that had to do with this deal that was happening with Disney or if it was part of the Discovery Warner Brothers merger. I did notice that before the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, Warner Brothers was in a really unique position. It had all the DC stuff, it had all the Harry Potter stuff, it had things like Friends, The Big Bang Theory, and it had a lot of great programming that focused around diversity. This was a really good platform. And including Doctor Who in that, I thought was a really great step for Warner Brothers. And I actually thought, like, wow, it would be so great if the production partner was Warner Brothers. I think it would really have given them like this edge. CBS had Star Trek, Disney had Star Wars, and then Warner Brothers would have Doctor Who. And, they work with things like HBO with some of like the award winning programming that they have over there. I thought Warner Brothers is a good home for Doctor Who. But when I saw that Disney had picked it up, I thought, this is so wonderful. Like, if we could get a cinematic universe in the same way we have the Star Wars universe and Marvel universe housed in one place, the collections, 60 years of like content to bring over to Disney, I thought, oh, this is fantastic. Like, it makes sense for them to want this catalog of like, 60 years worth of content. And I think that where it really hurt them was the not allowing for the slow burn. I met Russell T Davis at the Doctor Who premiere in Los Angeles when, the first season came out and they were celebrating Millie Gibson and Ncuti Gatwa. And we spoke briefly, and he said that it was really important to get subscribers up, that it was important for Disney to see subscriptions go up, which I fully understand. They're making this investment into Doctor Who and they want to see a return on their revenue. The only thing is that there's this overlap of people
Yeah.
who love Disney products and who love Doctor Who. So I think that a majority of the people who love Doctor Who already had Disney Plus. If you're
Yeah.
into shows like Doctor Who, the chances of you being into Star Wars or Marvel or Disney films is a little bit higher than like perhaps other genres. So I think that like you can't really measure success in that way sometimes. Also, had they brought over the original episodes, right? Like, for example, the episodes from that HBO let go, they had the opportunity of having people find all these new projects. And I like to point out the story of the young woman who was watching the Game of Thrones spinoff, House of the Dragon, who blew up on Twitter and went viral because she was obsessed with Matt Smith.
Oh, I
And so
forgot about her.
she
Yes.
was lovely. Her tweets made me so happy, and I can't think of her name off
Yeah.
the top of my head. But she made me like start to rewatch Doctor Who because she was tweeting. She started Doctor Who with Matt Smith's run because she had seen him in House of the Dragon and she wanted to see what else he'd done. And she went through this whole journey on Twitter, live tweeting kind of like her reactions to episodes and her reactions to Doctor Who. And it was so amazing to watch somebody with no context fall in love with Doctor Who. That happened before the Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
you know,
HBO Max. Yep.
HBO Max, before they pulled it off of their streaming platforms, right? If that had not been there, she probably would not have gone viral. And I feel like they missed the opportunity of allowing people to organically find it and build a fandom from there. There's so many doctors, and you can start with whatever doctor based on whatever you like. Like, for example, she liked, Matt Smith from House of the Dragon, not very sci fi, but fantasy, yes, sci fi,
Yep.
no, right? But there was this opportunity to bring all these fans into the Doctor Who genre. There's also like the Sarah Jane Adventures, Class, Torchwood. There's so much that could have been found organically by bringing these all over to the Disney platform and just housing it in one place for people to
Yeah.
find.
I had been somebody, and people will, I'm actually surprised that anybody who's like gotten upset with me for the things that I've pointed out since this deal has been, publicly said that they are not going forward with it. I always said, like, to me it made sense, and it would make no sense for Disney to let go of something that is this long lived, that does have that big catalog. And I stand by that. I don't think that this makes much sense apart from the fact that, like you said, the way that streaming platforms measure success and the way they almost have to measure success is so broken compared to especially a long running show like Doctor Who that does have its ups and downs. Whether or not you agree with what those ups and downs should be based on viewing numbers or what the online reaction you see is a whole other thing entirely. But when you have a show like this where it does have those ups and downs, you can't measure it exactly. And like you said too, there is so much overlap between Doctor Who and Disney fans that I can't imagine that there was a whole lot of people signing up just for Doctor Who if they didn't already have Disney Plus. Because, I mean, and the other thing too is they're not going to lose a lot of subscribers from getting rid of Doctor Who either. Because, again, I'm a Star Wars fan, I'm a Marvel fan, I'm a Disney fan, I'm very excited about all the new episodes of Phineas and Ferb. So it's tricky. It's almost like the partnership was too good, but also not quite good enough, which I think we can talk about, because there were a lot of positives and negatives to this, I feel like. But yeah, like you said, the positive could have been more people coming in to see the show. But what did you think there were other things that they were? Do you think there's other things that they did well?
Oh, what do you mean? Disney did well per se in
that
picking
that
up the
having
show,
this,
or
yeah, like if because for me, it meant easier access for fans around the globe. Like in the US, like we're probably, I'm not super worried about us still having access to Doctor Who because probably outside of the UK, the US is, I would guess, but I don't know numbers to back this up, the biggest market for Doctor Who. But around the globe, more fans got to see the show, especially they got to see it at the same time as it came out in the UK. Because let me tell you, especially somebody who used to work Saturdays, having to make sure I got off my phone at 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. or whatever time it was airing in the UK to make sure I did not get any spoilers was not fun. And then, too, I also really appreciated that there were no commercials. I mean, granted, I pay for the ad free, so I don't know what the experience is on the ad supported Disney Plus. But in the UK on the BBC, they don't do commercial breaks. And when it was airing on BBC American states, you would get those commercial breaks, and it ruined the pacing so frequently. Like, I still remember um, Matt Smith's last episode of Doctor Who, The Time at the Doctor, I believe, right? There's a part where he's doing his regeneration, love from Gallifrey boys, and it fades to black. And I so distinctly remember this because it fades to black. And the commercial that comes out, because it's not immediately clear that it's gone to a commercial break. The next commercial break fades in from black, and it's like the silhouette of a person with holes in their body. And I was so deeply concerned for like half a second before I realized it had gone to commercial. I was like, what happened?
yeah,
And so it
I
was nice
don't
to not
miss
have those
those.
commercial breaks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm a fan of AMC who puts out BBC Plus, but I am not a fan of that like weird break because our
Yeah.
commercial structure is different from what they use in the UK. So that was a benefit to having on this platform. It was a benefit to be able to get episodes at midnight and watch it at your
Yes.
discretion whenever you wanted to watch it. I know that it's hard for people like spoilers related, especially in this like age of social media. But for me, at least I knew like, okay, I'll just stay offline until I catch it when it's convenient for me and not like, oh, I have to catch it at this time or it's over for me.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah,
And
I think that was one of the positives. I think the other thing for me personally, as a member of the press, having like an American contact for them through Disney, where we could actually get things like assets, photos, production notes in the Disney format. I know that doesn't really matter to most regular fans, but to me, it was so nice to be able to
yeah,
get access to photos and things and production notes in the Disney style of things, where it's so organized.
for sure. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I loved having everything all nice on the Disney Press website. And like I said earlier too, I think another positive was that it really fit in with the Disney brand. But that, like we talked about already, that's a positive and a negative because so many Disney Doctor Who fans are Disney fans that it might have hurt the show's ability to bring in new subscribers because we were already subscribed.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. Like, you hear things about like Pixar, and the way that they have muted LGBTQ plus representation. Sometimes you hear things about how, like, you know, the powers that be didn't allow a particular storyline or anything like that, or things like that to kind of come to pass. And I think we saw that with Turning Red and with the Buzz Lightyear film. And I'm trying to think of what other kind of Pixar film had
I
this
think Win or
issue.
Lose had something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember people talking about them having to edit the storyline
Yeah, so
or being made to.
being made to, yeah. So
Yeah.
I understand that maybe Doctor Who as it is was a little too risque for them. I don't feel that way, and I don't think a lot of people. I think it's pretty like inclusive, but I don't think it's really risque. It's still a family show, and I think that it brings conversations to the forefront in a gentle and family friendly way. So, I'm not surprised that they got rid of Doctor Who. I'm not saying that that's the reason that they got rid of Doctor Who. I'm sure it all has to come down to revenue, but I'm not surprised. And after we saw what happened with, Jimmy Kimmel and the censorship there, again, not surprised. I don't even know if that correlates at all, if that was part of the decision making or part of the conversation when they came to kind of axing their partnership with Doctor Who. But it doesn't speak well to like the brand in general, right? To have all these stories of censorship kind of like back to back. Um, and I think Doctor Who would have been a really great opportunity to kind of dispel those rumors and say, look, we have this show that features, not just like a, you know, black man at the center of this series, but a gay black man at the center of the series. And to have storylines that kind of go with that. I don't know. I thought it would have been really great. I loved it. I'm sad to see it go.
Yeah, I know. It's disappointing. I mean, though I'm sure the argument can be made, but then he regenerated into Billy Piper. But at the same time, it's disappointing. Especially because Shooty Gatwa is so amazing, and there is probably a lot of truth to the fact that Disney dragging their feet on this deal did lose us Shooty Gatwa because he wasn't able to plan what his availability would be. I mean, this past year he's been in a play in the UK. I think it's called Born with Teeth. It's about Shakespeare and another writer that I cannot remember his name at the moment. But when you have Disney dragging their feet on it, and he needs to plan because he's probably getting offers, because and rightfully so, because he is an amazingly talented actor. I want to see him in more things. I need to figure out where the War of the Roses movie is streaming, because I did not catch it in theaters. Especially because I love him and I love Olivia Colman and I love Benedict Cumberbatch, so like that's a great cast. um, but yeah, I mean, like, we'll talk about the negatives for sure too. I mean, I think one other thing that they could have done more is, like, I don't know if this is a not believing in the show enough or believing in the show too much, but they just didn't advertise it like I feel like they could have. Yes, there was some press outreach for sure, and there was like a little bit of advertising. Like they put like the TARDIS in the Disneyland Esplanade for a week, and then they put it in downtown Disney in Florida for a week. But just it felt like they didn't do a lot, which, especially when we're talking about a show that has 60 plus years of history by the time it makes it to Disney Plus, it's not an unknown quantity. Yes, okay, maybe you don't know exactly how a particular doctor or a particular companion is going to perform with the fans, but you know that the show has been around for 60 years. You should have some level of ability to believe in the fact that you should advertise it more widely to get it a bigger audience. And quite frankly, I do also think that, given that I'm sure, like we talked about, subscriber numbers is important to see how well a show's doing. But I also think that they should have gotten at least a little bit involved in the merch game. Because if Disney does nothing else well, it's the merch.
You and I have
But
had so many discussions about
yeah,
the merchandising opportunities that are
Yes.
lost by Doctor Who. And this is my open
Yes.
letter to Doctor Who. This is my open letter to Loungefly, to, Thrilljoy, Funko, like all these places that
Spirit
do these like
jersey, please.
you
Please.
know,
I want a Doctor Who spirit jersey.
I love a TARDIS.
Yes.
I love a TARDIS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But there is so much in Doctor Who that you can capitalize on. And I'm just thinking about the Loungefly bags, right? How many people just buy multiples and multiples of these little like mini backpacks or whatever the little Loungefly bags are, right?
Yep.
One of they call them the cosplay bags, right? Because it kind of looks like a character or something like that, right? Weeping Angel, Clockwork Droid. Yeah, exactly. Just like your,
With my little Herbie.
with your little Herbie. Yeah. If you did a Weeping Angel one, a Dalek one, a Clockwork Droid one, a Cyberman head one, like there are so many opportunities. Loungefly, please hear me.
I know.
There are so many opportunities for Doctor Who merchandising, right? Not only that, but like a cosplay like backpack for every doctor. And I'm not saying they have to be like mass produced because I know not everybody's a first, second, third doctor fan, whatever, right? But like you could make a 10th doctor cosplay mini backpack, a 12th, like their costumes are so distinct and so unique, yet they fall back on the TARDIS every single time. There are so many opportunities to sue so much. There's so many monsters and villains, and I especially like the Clockwork Droid stuff, like there's so much you could do with those kind of things, outfits, t-shirts. They're like you said, spirit jersey. I would buy a spirit jersey of every doctor.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 11, 12, whatever. Right now, I think it's Her Universe that I see do all of like the jerseys, right? I made
Yeah.
my own baseball jersey for Doctor Who, and it says like Time Lords across here, and I have the 12 for Capaldi on the back,
Aw.
and like
Yeah.
well, I had to go order that specially from one of those like, kid uniform baseball team places because I couldn't find enough Doctor Who merch that I want. I want to spend my money on Doctor Who merch. Like,
Yeah.
please. It does, and I love a TARDIS, but not everything has to be a TARDIS. Also, like, why are we not selling at like, the multi packs of the screwdrivers, like a collection pack? Here's all the screwdrivers. They are so impossible to find.
Yeah.
Like, get me Sonic screwdrivers in a collection pack.
Yeah. Because, like,
Get
as
me
soon as the Doctor's over, they stop selling and making them. And I'm like, for why?
for why?
For why?
I would continue to buy them. One of the things that I'm so scared of at conventions is to lose one because to get another one is impossible. And sometimes I
Yeah.
buy 4 or 5 of them. I have like maybe 3 of Ncuti Gatwas, and I have a ton of, the regenerated 14th Dr. David Tennant one. I have so many. Like, I'm so scared to lose one. Like, I will buy the things. And it is great to have like things like the comic books and stuff like that. Like, I'm very like grateful for all this extended universe, like the novelizations and things like that. But like, I want the merch. I want something to wear. And you can do so
Exactly.
much with all these other characters.
Yeah. I'm like, why did we not have a Dugadoo plush ready to go? Like, especially after they did the live stream and like 12-hour loop of the song. Like, come on. I mean,
And I'm sure they didn't know how that was going to hit,
true,
right?
but
And
still,
now that they
like,
know, now that
where
you
is it?
know,
Yeah.
why are they not selling the Interstellar Song Contest shirts,
Yes,
People
I
are
know. Because,
making their own.
yeah, because I believe it was Phil Collinson, who I think's one of the producers for Doctor Who. He had an Interstellar Star Contest shirt that he wore to Gallifrey 1 this February. Like, I didn't notice it until he said something at the interview that I was at, where he wore a different shirt every day that was teasing something in the next season of Doctor Who, which I thought was so fun. Like, but can I also have one of those shirts, please?
Yeah. Absolutely. And even just for Halloween, right? Like, it
Mm-hmm.
is so hard to find Doctor Who cosplays. You could do so much with costumes for Halloween and things like that. Like,
Yeah,
give it a chance, guys. Like, there are geeks out there. It's been around for 60 years for a reason. Like,
I know. And I know some of the Doctor Who merch stuff, especially with the Daleks, because it's gonna get into like nitty niche weird details. But this is a Doctor Who podcast. That's what you come here for, right? Um, in the early years of Doctor Who, the rights to the characters and especially like any monsters that went to the person who wrote or created those things, not to the BBC. So, like the guy who
mm,
invented the Daleks, Terry Nation, when there are Daleks and things, when they make stuff with Daleks on them, they have to get permission from and pay the estate of Terry Nation. And I
pay
think
the
that's probably.
estate then.
I know. I'm like, it's gonna sell. It's Daleks, which is like one of the most iconic villains of this show.
Pay the
Work
estate.
something out. Work
I
something out.
understand. So,
Yeah.
like, it's one of the things that is a little bit disappointing is that, like, everything comes down to dollars, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how much money did Doctor Who, you know, return on the investment from Disney? How much money do we have to pay people out for the rights to whatever? Give people merchandising rights.
Yeah.
Just give it to them.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, even I know for a while, I think it was like Hot Topic and Box Lunch, who are obviously owned by the same company. For a while, they had like print on demand Doctor Who shirts, which were like some of them were a little weird. I bought a couple of the weird ones because they delighted me. And some of them were really great, and I just, that's a good way to like have the option, but you don't have to do the producing and worry about having stock that you can't sell. Just like try doing print on demand stuff. And also at the same time, please make sure it's available in countries other than the UK, because I still have not been able to find a place to buy the most recent wave of Target novelizations, which, at least in physical copies, which really irritates me because I like having the physical books. And Barnes and Noble does not have them. Amazon, I would have to wait like a month, which makes me think they're shipping from the UK. You know, I'm sure it's not helped by the current state of affairs with tariffs and everything, but at the same time, it's like I want my books.
Absolutely. Agreed completely. Give me everything.
Yeah, I'm like I
I'm
want the
willing to spend the
books.
money on it.
Exactly.
Also,
I'm
one
like
of
I
the
will buy the
things
shirts.
that I really loved as well was when Lego Dimensions introduced the Doctor Who
Yeah.
Lego sets. Give me Lego sets,
Have you
please.
seen Have you seen the Star Trek Next Generation set that they just revealed today?
The
Like, give
four
me
hundred
something
dollar
like that.
one,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm
I
like,
literally went to pre-order it, and I was like, "Oh, it's four hundred
yeah.
dollars. Do
I,
I
I
want it
I
badly? Yes, but
yeah. I am delighted by the fact that they gave Data his cat spot, which is delightful to me. But that's another topic. Um,
but yeah,
I do think one other missed opportunity that they had was the lack of movie theater screenings in the U.S. I don't know if that's like a complicated thing with like how Disney's distribution deal worked or whatever it was, but they only really did the movie theater screenings in the UK for these past two seasons, and I think that's also a missed revenue stream. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. In theory, you can just watch it on Disney Plus and it's not any extra money, but I think a lot of fans do like seeing stuff on the big screen, especially when you have these big finales.
I think it would have been nice to see some of the 60th anniversary with David
Yes.
Tennant coming back on the big screen.
Yes.
Even just one of the three specials, would have been cool to see on the big screen, especially
I
when
would
you
have.
have like a big star like Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah,
Like,
I was gonna say I would have loved to see the Spice Up Your Life scene on the big screen. That would have been delightful.
yeah, absolutely. I think that for Doctor Who, a lot of it is community. A lot of it is
Mm-hmm.
like fandom and being together and experiencing something together. Like you said, yes, we could have seen it on Disney Plus and stuff, but there is something very exciting about watching it together. And I know you've talked about screening the episode of The Woman Who Fell to Earth,
Yeah,
Jodie Whittaker's first episode at New York Comic Con. And I think that that is such an exciting fandom moment. And it's, I think that having it in movie theaters would have been great just for that, just to
yeah.
have like a moment of the fandom together.
Yeah, like I even remember when the 50th anniversary came out, they didn't do day of screenings in the US. They did the screenings a few days later because they were like waiting for the weekend or whatever, which was fine, but it was still a packed movie theater for the 50th anniversary. And it was like a decent sized theater too, that it was in near me, and there was a lot of people. And you could even tell that some people had been avoiding spoilers. They didn't watch it on TV when it came out on BBC America. And even when the 50th came out on BBC America, it was this whole special thing where they were showing it at the same time as the UK, and there was no commercial breaks. It was a whole thing, and it was great, and felt so special. But then still to get to go and see it in the movie theaters with everybody, and just I still like I remember like the little gasp that you heard around the theater of people who hadn't seen it yet, and you hear Tom Baker's voice, and everybody's like, it's so special, and yes, it would have
We
been
had
extra money.
3D glasses. That was fun.
That too, yes, and it was in 3D, and they had a whole little like special introduction from. I think there was like an introduction from Strax, and there was an introduction from 10 and 11. That was so fun. Like they made a joke about Matt Smith's chin. It's still on YouTube somewhere, I'm sure, that you could look it up. But, yeah, I think that they kind of missed on, providing those opportunities for community. I'll even say I know how cool it was for you guys get to go to the Los Angeles premiere, and I'm a little jealous. I wish I could have gone, but but I also remember I had the incredible chance. I managed to get a ticket for the New York City stop of the world premiere when they were doing that tour with Peter Capaldi's first season and his first episode. And that was so cool, and that felt bigger than what I felt like I saw from the Los Angeles premiere. Weirdly, I don't know, but
Yeah, I think it
not having
was
been there.
bigger. It was
Yeah,
actually it was a small premiere. Was it lovely? Yes. Was very intimate, and I was very excited to be at such an intimate event with the creators of what I think is one of the most incredible shows on television. And I think it's incredible because of its family friendliness, and you know, but it was very intimate, I'll say. I won't say that it was small because they did make a big deal out of it, but it felt more intimate. For example, I also noticed that they didn't do much with the Comic Con like crowds, whether it was New York or San Diego Comic Con. I feel like there was a missed opportunity there when Jenna Coleman came to San Diego Comic Con with, Peter Capaldi. That event, the energy and the excitement that was brought over with Jenna Coleman and Peter Capaldi was incredible. The They were on every stage. There was so much happening that was Doctor Who related. And then even when Jodie Whittaker came for San Diego Comic Con, there was like this such a hurrah and like such a celebration of all of it. It felt huge and it felt big and it felt like they were really putting like everything behind these shows. And I did not feel that big push of like, hey, we're so proud of this thing. Like everybody needs to see it. So
yeah. Like compared to what BBC America did to promote the show in the States, it did feel like they weren't doing as much as they could, especially for it being a new show on their platform. But again, it comes down to, yes, it's a new show on your platform, but it's a show that's proven itself over many decades to be a hit and to be fun and that people really enjoy. And especially when you have like a fresh start with a new doctor, that's always exciting. Will some people, moan and complain about this, that, or the other thing? Sure. But overall, it's always very exciting when you get a new doctor, even though you're missing the old doctor. And it's an opportunity to be like, hey, look at these people. It's so exciting to see them, to be part of this and to, get out and promote it. I mean, they did some of that. They did, a couple of the late night shows when they were in New York. Um, and I think I remember they did like a rap on the shuttle on the subway that goes from like I think Penn Station to Times Square or whatever. I think Wicked has got a rap on it right now too. And, so they did some things, but it just felt like they could have done it on a little bit of a bigger scale and drawn more attention to the fact, hey, this show is on our platform now. Come check it out. look at, we've got a new doctor. It's very exciting. It's a new start for the show. But it's just, I get that you can't always put all the money behind everything, but for a show that is successful before you became part of it, there should have been a little bit more.
Yeah, I would have. I think a little more fanfare would have been nice.
Yeah, that's like, because even at New York Comic Con, past couple, I think the last time there was a big Doctor Who event at New York Comic Con was Jodie Whittaker's first episode, but then they've been bringing Peter Capaldi over, and anybody else who was available who was part of the season as a regular for a couple of years before that too. Even like the year that we were only getting the Christmas special, whatever that superhero one is, the Return of Doctor Mysterio. Yeah, even that they brought him over for, and he talked about a little bit, and it was cool, and we got to see some concept art on and everything, and it wasn't just like one of the smaller panel rooms. Like at the time, because of the space that they had at the Javits, or rather the lack of the space they had at the Javits, New York Comic Con at the time was using Madison Square Garden for some of their bigger panels, which included Doctor Who. And it was nice because then you knew you were going to get in. You just had to show up early if you wanted a front row seat and possibly be captured and somewhat memeified when you're watching Jodie's first episode. But yeah, it was just like, it would have been nice to see them believe in the show a little bit more to bring those events. I mean, they did have the TARDIS and the Doctor in Ruby's outfits on display at D23, which was nice, which was cool. I have a picture every single day I was at D23 in front of the TARDIS. But they didn't talk about it during the studios panel where they talked about all the other TV shows and all the other movies. It was included in the sizzle reel that they played before the panel, but they did not talk about Doctor Who during that panel, which I was a little disappointed by.
And also, I think this close to launching the war between the land and the sea, you would see a little bit more happening. Like, for example, it would have been nice to see them at the very least at San Diego Comic Con or at New York Comic Con promoting the series. Um, it would have been
Which they,
nice
they had the
to,
pop-up, which was really cool to see, but like there was no panel and none of the cast came over.
yeah. And I would have also liked to have seen them promote that at D23.
Yeah,
They
for
could have
sure.
had a Doctor Who panel with, the Land of the Sea folks and sorry, the war between the Land of the Sea folks.
Yes.
Am I saying that
It's
right?
very long. The war between the land and the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
weird coming out the mouth.
I know it's a very long, complicated I keep calling it. It's like the Taylor Swift lyric version of a Doctor Who spin-off title. I mean, compared to the fact that the show is called Doctor Who, and the spin-offs are like the Sarah Jane Adventures, Torchwood, the War Between the Land and the Sea is a very long title. But yeah, I mean, because I mean, when D23 happened last August, that was, if I'm remembering correctly, that was like shortly after the first season had concluded, and the second season was, I don't think they were filming at that point. They might have been filming at that point, but still, like a lot of the people who showed up to talk about their shows were, in production or close to production. I think apart from the Fantastic Forecast, everybody had somebody show up. So I'm sure they could have found somebody from Doctor Who to come over and talk, or even video conference in, or do a video package because they had these giant screens. It would have been fine. So it was a little disappointing that they didn't really talk about Doctor Who at that, with the second season in production and the first season having just come out. So we've talked about the positives and negatives. What have you seen any of the online fan reactions? I just want to talk about that a little bit because some of them have been interesting, and I really need to learn to not get into arguments on the internet. But
I will let you kind of say your bit, and then I'll go from there.
yeah, yeah, just the people who are all like, "Oh, yay, Doctor Who's gonna have a lower budget now," I take great exception to. Because, if you think about it even a little bit, even if you're not familiar with how, managers or businesses or whatever deal with labor costs are usually one of the biggest parts of any expense, making anything, is you have to pay the people to be there. It's not, that's a big part of, the budget. And so to say, oh, yay, smaller budget, I'm like, when I hear that, I we'll talk about what people mean when they say that, but when I hear that, I hear, you know, you're okay with people getting their hours cut, you're okay with people possibly losing their jobs, and then other people having to do more because they have less people, that kind of thing. And it really rubs me the wrong way. I kind of understand what people mean when they say, oh, smaller budget means they have to get more creative with, you know, the stories that they write, because they have to consider how much, they can build sets or costumes or CGI or anything. I understand that to a degree, but I wish people would say like, oh, I want them to focus on the stories more. And I also don't love the whole like, oh, having a smaller budget makes you more creative. And I'm like, okay, on one hand I see that, yes, like as somebody who cosplays, because I don't have the budget of a big movie studio and don't have access to all the fancy machines that they do. I have to get creative when I make costumes. But if you're in a professional setting and making a show that is like the tent pole of the BBC, you should have any and all resources that you need or want to be able to do your job, to be able to tell the story that you want to tell. And it just irks me. It really does. And what also blows my mind is the people who will, in the same breath, also be like, oh, maybe they'll go back to more episodes now. No, they're. I mean, I would love to be proved wrong. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have more episodes of Doctor Who back in a season. Um, but one of the incredible opportunities that I did get was we got to be part of the press conferences for both seasons of Doctor Who that aired on Disney Plus. And when the first season was getting ready to come out, I did get the chance to ask Russell T Davies about the shorter episode order for the show. And, I will quote his response, quote, "Oh no, can you believe that we used to make 14 a year? Blimey, we were dying. It's actually a more complicated show to make now, so it takes us as long to make the 9 now as it did to make the original 14." So I don't think we're getting more episodes unless something really drastic changes, or if they go to maybe like an every other year type of thing. But I don't think anybody wants that either. I think we would all love to have it be yearly. But just the way people have been talking about it just blows my mind. I'm like, I want my favorite show to have all the money that it needs to make the stories that the people love and who love this show and want to write for the show that they want to tell, you know. And just, it irks me. It's really irked me. I need to not get into arguments about it online, but just overall celebrating a show losing money feels wrong to me. Um, and yeah, that's my biggest piece of that. I have other things that I want to talk about too, but I'll let you if you want to say anything more.
Yeah, when it comes to fan reactions, I am of the school of thought of, like you said, sometimes they say one thing online, but they mean something deeper. They didn't have the words to articulate whatever it was that they were trying to say. And sometimes people just blurt out via tweet, text, whatever it is, the first thought that came into their heads without fully forming it. And if you kind of like push back against it, they double down and kind of like try to defend their point. So I try to take it with like a grain of salt. You know, criticisms should always be welcomed, right? Like people should be allowed to express themselves and, voice their likes and dislikes and things like that. But I try to take it with a grain of salt, just kind of thinking like, oh, most likely somebody said this thing and it wasn't that deep for them, but now they have to defend it, you know, or whatever. So I try not to worry too much about it. When it comes to budget cuts and things like that, I agree. Pay artists what they deserve, pay cast and crew what they deserve. And I understand the appeal of wanting to go back to things like practical effects versus like CGI and things like that. but we're also in an era where like, you know, even practical effects are really expensive. So, you know, who am I? I am not the artist. I am just the consumer of it. And as long as it looks good, like I'm fine with it. But yeah, I don't think I have much to add to that conversation. As far as like fan reactions with like, you know, oh, people disliked the Disney era. There are some valid criticisms where there are things to dislike. Me particularly, I have gotten used to the idea of Rose as the Doctor. I've processed it over a couple months. My initial reaction was like, "What are they doing?" Um, but and the way that we lost in Shruti as the Doctor really threw me. I was not prepared to see him regenerate. I watched that on my lunch break at work. And I did not know it was going to be his regeneration episode, whereas with so many other shows that like, or so many other regenerations, it was a big event. You know, we knew Jodie was leaving. We knew Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, Peter Capaldi was leaving. We knew all of these things, right? So to not know that he was regenerating kind of hurt. And so if you're talking about criticisms like that, I get it. If you're talking about criticisms against the fact that he had a romance with Rogue, you know, that just feels like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, because I think that's the other thing that's kind of causing more friction and contention online than it needs to, is a lot of people think that Disney had more creative control than they really did. You know, obviously nobody really knows the exact specifics of what the deal that they worked out was, but mostly from accounts that we've heard that, you know, are reasonably well sourced, is that Disney had suggestions and the BBC was free to act on those or not act on those. They weren't, you know, in the writer's room probably, kind of thing. And so it's like if you had a problem with like a plot point, it talk to Russell T Davies, you know.
there was an article from Deadline. The headline goes, Why Disney Ditched Doctor Who. Sources say ratings, big ticket budget, and MAGA politics were factors in the BBC deal failing to regenerate. Throughout the article, they say that their sources said that Doctor Who was too woke for this generation, and that sources added that their inclusivity and their wokeness was too much for Disney, and that's what led to them being cut, or like to the end of the partnership. Now, all of these Deadline sources are unnamed. They don't actually go through and name a source. So like, Deadline is a pretty reputable source. They may be right, but because they don't name the sources, or they say that they're like former employees,
Right. Especially when it's
what
former employees, you gotta
we
look
don't
into something.
know, right? Like, what if they just have a grudge and are saying things, or, you know,
Right.
like, I not knowing who the sources are makes it hard to kind of like really take it in. So I don't want to spread any misinformation and say that Doctor Who was too woke and audiences didn't like the fact that you had a gay black man as the lead to this series, and that his historic kiss between him and Jonathan Groff was what drew tons of complaints. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that because it's an unnamed source that says this,
Right.
right? But because we did see, you know, the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel, and because we did see, like, you know, Pixar movies being like censored, I wouldn't put it past them, right? Like, I wouldn't put it past Disney, but I don't know that that's true. But it's not
Right.
looking good for the reputation if it is.
Yeah, like I will say I wouldn't be shocked if part of the reason they decided not to go forward was maybe Disney wanted more creative control over the show, and the BBC and Russell T Davies were like, no, you know, which, you know, honestly, good for them. You don't need to, you don't, you know, too
But
many,
we
what
don't
is it,
know that.
too many chefs in the kitchen or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but you know, who knows? It's, you know, it would be disappointing if that were true, because like overall Disney, obviously, like we've talked about, doesn't have a perfect track record with stuff, but in other areas, it's a whole thing that.
That was one of the disappointing things for me when I saw that it wasn't HBO Max that picked up Doctor Who, because before the Discovery merger, uh, HBO had Warner Brothers had kind of become this haven of like inclusivity, and it had a lot of programming that was like really inclusive. And I was really excited because I thought that Doctor Who would be a perfect fit with them, and that they would give them the proper platform to kind of go with these ideas that are already embedded in what Doctor Who is. You know, Doctor Who, for all intents and purposes, is a very liberal kind of like future thinking type of show, you know? And so I thought that HBO would have been a really good home for that, because at the time, you know, before the Discovery merger, they were really kind of pushing that kind of content. And I was loving to consume that. And then, you know, the Discovery merger kind of pushed everything to more of like a reality TV format. And there were some weird changes, and a lot of really great shows got cut and kind of forgotten about during that merger. And Batgirl's a really good example of that, like of
Yes,
losing
I
something.
was talking with somebody about that today, and I'm like, I'm still upset about Batgirl.
Yeah, so uh, I'm sad to see that, you know, I don't know. I'm kind of blaming Discovery for a lot of this. If they had just behaved. But, you know, Disney could have really stepped up in that situation, and we
Mhm.
saw them step up and then just say, you know what, never mind.
I think one other thing that has kind of irked me with some of the reactions that I've seen is I don't know if xenophobia is the right word, but the way some of the fans from the UK act about the show, like they're the only ones who can appreciate the show or the only ones who should have a hand in the show. Like to a certain degree, yes, but just the way people sometimes talk about it is a bit weird. Like I had somebody, I forget if it was in a comment on a video I made or if I like made a comment or whatever on somebody else's video where they were like, Americans should never be involved in Doctor Who. And I'm like, well, there's a worldwide fan base, so we're gonna watch the show at the very least. But also like BBC America also put money into the show. They also did promotion for the show. They did, they had I feel like I remember one of Peter Capaldi's seasons, I remember seeing that BBC America had put enough into the show that it technically would have been eligible for Emmys or something, where it hadn't been in the past. I don't know how exactly that breaks down. I just
Yeah,
remember
because
thinking that,
they're
like,
technically AMC.
right. And also Rachel Talalay exists and has done some of the most incredible work on Doctor Who, and she is an American director. Like, if you like Heaven Sent, Rachel Talalay directed that episode, and she has done incredible work on the show. And so it just irks me when the UK people, and it's not all of the fans from the UK, but just like there's a couple that get really, really protective over the show. And to a good degree, I understand that, but like acting like you're the only ones who can appreciate the show or should get to appreciate the show is a little much.
And I wonder if
Especially,
that comes because of the Paul McGann era. You know, that one was an
yeah,
American, I think it was Fox. I want to say that.
yes,
It did feel a little bit different, but it still felt
right,
like Doctor Who. Bill and
exactly,
Ted is a like parody of Doctor Who. It's very American. I can understand a people being very protective of something that they love so
yes,
much, and it's part of their culture, and it's part of like them, right? If you
hmm,
grew up your whole life watching the show, and it's very quintessential British TV,
yeah,
right? So I fully understand the wanting to protect it and hold on to it, and not letting like some Fast and the Furious director, no
yeah,
shade to the Fast and the Furious, may that franchise live long and prosper, okay? But I'm just saying, like, you know, I get the fear of what
yes,
American television could do to it.
yeah,
But also, American television puts out some of the most incredible television stories, whether, you know, film or television. So,
yeah. No, exactly. It's like I said, I get where they're coming from, but the way that they go about saying some of the stuff is just like, but also like on the internet, everybody's going to kind of overblow their position to get reactions and to get clicks and everything. But it's just like I just want people to remember I'm like overseas audiences are important because that, they make money on the show by selling distribution rights. Where it's available, overseas fans will buy merch. Let me buy merch, please. Please put stuff back in Hot Topic and Box Lunch. I would buy it. Thank you. And it is going to be tricky for the BBC to negotiate a new distribution deal or deals depending on who's interested. And again, they're going to lose some of the people in countries where it might not be seen as big of a deal are going to lose access.
And I think right now, one of the fears as well is that there's a lack of distribution because all the platforms are merging with one another. There's like this monopoly of streaming services happening, and there are not that many places who could host a show like this. You know what I mean? Disney, Warner Brother Discovery, maybe CBS, like, but there's not a lot of places where you can host such a big catalog plus put out future stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like
because I mean, this was something else I
Netflix,
want to talk.
maybe.
Yeah, it's what I want to talk about is like where else it might go because the show has been on most of the major streamers at this point and then let go by those streamers, which that might have been a them decision, that might have been a BBC decision to try to get more money by selling it to somebody else. I don't know. But like, it was on Netflix for a really long time. And arguably when it was on Netflix, that was when it was at its biggest kind of hype in the States because that was a streaming service because it was like one of the first ones and the most popular one. Everybody had access to it and you could watch Doctor Who and it was great. And you could say, oh, there's this really great show, Doctor Who. It's on Netflix. Yeah, oh yeah, I've got Netflix. Whereas now it's so fragmented.
I discovered Doctor Who when it was on Netflix, and
Yeah,
I discovered it during Matt Smith's run. So
yeah,
I was watching Matt Smith's run on BBC America, but I was binging the old stuff on Netflix. I think Netflix could make a good home for it. It was
yeah, oh, for sure.
successful there before, and it's a big enough platform that it could host new shows, new episodes. I think that I would like it to go to something like Netflix. I do get very scared with things like CBS and Paramount because of like their current mergers and everything happening there. Skydance, all of these things, they're all becoming like this big giant conglomerate, and it like gives a lot of control and a lot of power to like very few people. And I'm very concerned with the people that own it and their beliefs and what they will wish to see on their platforms. And it becomes less democratic. It becomes less of what we want to see and more of what they say we should see. I'm a little bit worried about that with Disney now. I wasn't ever before, but the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel kind of like really shook me there. And I was like, oh, I don't have trust in this brand anymore. There's too much that has like domino effect for me to like trust this brand in this way, especially with such a beloved franchise. And to give it the axe the way that so unceremoniously, I, yeah, the way
Especially
they
when,
handled.
yeah, the way they drag their feet on it too. It's like, I feel it would make me, it makes me wonder how close we were to them renewing versus it was always going to be a no. So
It
I don't know.
feels like it was going to be a no, and they just didn't tell them that it was a no. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, but it felt off to me. I think I would like to see it somewhere like, Warner Brothers, HBO Max, or Netflix, but those are probably the only two.
Yeah. My only worry with Netflix is they have the same thing where like if a show isn't like super super popular or if it doesn't have kind of like with like The Crown where like the audience for The Crown kind of fell off. I still haven't seen like the last 2 or 3 seasons because yes, I watched mostly the first 2 seasons because Matt Smith. Um but they let The Crown finish to what they wanted to do, but then there's other shows where they have a more open-ended storyline and they cut it off after 1 season or 2 seasons because it might not perform exactly how they want it to. And I think that's a concern with any streamer that might pick it up, apart from like if maybe they put it on BritBox, which I think don't know the full specifics of that, but like a lot of BBC stuff is on there, and I think the BBC owns BritBox. But then they wouldn't get the money from being able to sell it to international markets, which I'm sure would impact the budget. And again, in my opinion, would be a bad thing if it impacted the budget and lowered their budget.
There is always Apple TV Plus. I am a huge fan of Apple TV Plus. I, I I just love their programming. I think it's some of the best programming out there, and they take a lot of risks with their programming. And the only problem with Apple TV Plus is they do not advertise their programming. Like you almost never hear on a large scale about an Apple TV show. And Ted Lasso gets a lot of love, right? From the Apple TV crowd. Severance gets a lot of love. But that's just like the tip of the iceberg. There's so many shows on Apple TV Plus that are better than Ted Lasso and better than Severance. And they just don't advertise them and they just don't say anything. So I feel like if it did go to a platform like that, they just wouldn't advertise it the way that they should. But I fully believe in Apple TV's ability to allow creatives to just do their own thing. Because there's little that I've seen on Apple TV that wasn't amazing.
Yeah, that was actually one of the ones that I had written down because, like I said, it's been on Netflix, it's been on Amazon, it's been on HBO Max. Hulu had some classic Who for a while there, and I was like trying to think of what major platform hadn't already had the show and let it go, and Apple TV was the only one I could think of. And it's like one of the ones I don't have. And hi, Apple TV, if you're listening and you want Doctor Who and you're going to support it and be nice to it, I will subscribe to Apple TV if you get Doctor Who. So let me say that. Hi. And then I will also finally happily get to watch the Come From Away pro shot, and I will get to watch Schmigadoon. So I'll be happy. But yeah, I think Apple TV could be a good home for it. But like you said, they don't. I mean, I've seen them do some like stunt stuff for Severance, especially. Didn't they like put the cast in like a glass box in Grand Central Station or something?
They sure
Um,
did.
yeah,
And they did a lot with Ted Lasso, I think, as far as like marketing Ted Lasso. But they have some shows that are way better than that. And their sci-fi genre, oh my God, so good. Um, I would even, Prime Video is another one that I think is really great at their programming. There's a lot of stuff on Prime Video for everybody. Their genres are like all over the place when it comes to Prime Video, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I mean, I just want Doctor Who in one place where I could just binge it whenever I want.
exactly. Yeah, because again, BritBox, I don't think they'd get as much money from because I think it's the way it's structured. I don't know how they would like make money from putting it on BritBox necessarily, aside from subscriptions, because I think it is owned by the BBC or something to that effect. But it would then be nice because then you would probably have all of Doctor Who in one place, at least the television series, because you would have, classic Who, you'd have 2005 on. The only one that still is in that weird limbo is the Eighth Doctor movie because that's still not anywhere.
Is
Because
it
it's.
not anywhere?
Mm-mm. I'll double check because there is a website. Hold on. Just watch. Because it's just in a weird limbo of who owns and whatever else.
You would think it'd be on demand at the very least.
You would think. I mean, it probably is somewhere, but I'm sure you can like buy it somewhere.
I don't see it.
Doctor Who
Like, where?
1996. Yeah, you can buy it places, but it's not streaming anywhere. Holy cow,
That's
Barnes& and Noble wants
lame.
$51 for a Blu-ray or $80 for a DVD of this movie.
Jeez.
That's
It's
insane.
$12.88 on Blu-ray at Amazon.
Yeah, but overall, I do worry about the show being able to find a long-lived home with how streamers measure success and how quick they are to cut shows that they don't think are performing well, especially like I said with the nature of Doctor Who, where not everybody is going to always love every Doctor, which can be fair. Sometimes there is some level of bigotry involved in that, but like I saw even outside of like Shooty and Jody, like I saw somebody say that Peter Capaldi was ugly, and I'm like, what? you know. But I just think it's going to be difficult for them to find the right home, especially one that will allow them to retain complete creative control over the show. So I don't know. One thing I did want to touch on, the way they, I got to bring it up, so give me 1 second. The way that the press release about BBC confirming the future, again, if you haven't seen, they will have a Christmas special next year in 2026, and they are working on a new season as well, or at least, they have committed to doing more seasons of the show. But one part of that press release that stood out to me was, quote, "We are delighted that Russell T Davies has agreed to write us another spectacular Christmas special for 2026. That reads to me like that might be his last episode, but I wasn't sure what you thought of that.
I think it is possible. I don't know what he has in the works either because you know, does have a lot of talent and has worked on other things other than Doctor Who. So, who knows? Like, obviously, I don't like to speculate, but yeah, I get what you're saying where it does kind of sound like that. I think that RTD has spent a lot of effort and time in keeping Doctor Who going and alive. So I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed on. But I think that for everybody involved, and I know that Bad Wolf Productions is, producing future seasons and the Christmas special and everything. And they also obviously co-produced the Disney Plus era. I think that they are very invested in the future of Doctor Who and they really care about it. So I don't see any reason for Russell T Davies to leave. If the criticisms truly were about his writing and the things that he said, I I don't know. I don't think that they would drop him like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends. I mean, I'm sure they're looking at fan reactions online. Overall, I really do love his writing on Doctor Who, don't get me wrong. I do think there has been a little bit of a struggle occasionally to wrap everything up in the finale of the show. I do think that most of that, the struggle that came with that in the most recent season, is because they had to go back and do reshoots because Shooty decided to leave. Um, but I wouldn't be mad either way if he stays on or if he doesn't. I wouldn't like. I do think that one thing that maybe they might do is like keep Russell on as like an executive producer, but maybe have a new person come in and like do the main writing for the show. Maybe I don't know. It would be nice to get
These
some fresh and new voices, though.
One of the new voices, the writer for the story engine. What
Yes,
was it the
I
story engine? Is that the name
yeah.
of the episode?
The story and the engine.
The story and the engine. That
Mm-hmm.
whoever that writer was incredible, and
So good.
I would love to see more stories like that. Though there were some incredible stories this season, and if he was just an executive producer, that would be fine. If he's a writer, I also enjoy his work as well, but I agree with the weird loose ends and things not being tied up. Also, we don't know why things were done the way that they were done.
Right.
And I'm sure there's all kinds of contracts and agreements that don't allow them to say anything specific. We can speculate, but it's just speculation. Either way, I would be okay if he sticks around, and if he leaves, that would make sense too. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm sure he's got other stuff that he wants to work on as well. Because he's been doing other things other than Doctor Who. But, it's something that you can tell that he really feels protective over. It's something that you can tell he loves. And I get that. So
And I
it
think that
just, the way
there
it was
is,
worded was interesting to me.
and I think that he truly, truly cares about the future of
Yes,
the show. And so
100%.
having it in the hands of somebody who actually gets it, who loves it, and who wants to protect it, and is not thinking about like, how am I going to cash in and make all this money from this like established IP?
Exactly.
Um, I think I would rather have it in the hands of somebody like RTD
Yeah,
than, just somebody new, for example, that we don't really know.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, because you know, whether however anybody feels about it, he was, a big part of the Disney Plus and Doctor Who deal. Um, and I think, yeah, I would not be shocked if there was some level of him being very protective over the show and telling Disney no about things. Who knows? But or telling Disney yes about things. I don't know. Um, but if it is his last episode, I do hope that he's able to tie everything up well. Especially, I want to know what's going on with Susan. Very much so. I'm like, Carol Ann Ford is here. What's going on with that kind of thing? But I don't know. I'm stuck between like I do enjoy his writing, kind of iffy sometimes on his finales, but also would love some new voices. I think it would be interesting to see some of the big Finnish writers get a chance to maybe do some episodes. You know, push comes to shove, I think Nicholas Briggs would probably be a good, showrunner for Doctor Who because he's been doing big Finish stuff all this time. Uh, so I don't know.
And I
We'll
think there's
see.
space for everything, right? I think there's
Yes.
space for some of the good old stories that RTD is known for, but I think there's also room for some from new voices,
Yeah.
fresh perspectives.
It would be nice, because I get it. He's the head writer, and so if there's a series arc, he needs to be involved in writing the episodes. But it'd be nice to see more episodes that are like co-written versus just him. I think the Well was a co-written episode between RTD and the person whose name I am forgetting, unfortunately, who wrote that episode with him. It would just be nice to get more voices in, just to because I think the show it's very hard to balance the nostalgia and the callbacks with doing new things and moving forward with new ideas and characters.
Eh, yeah, and
We
I
don't
think there is
necessarily
that.
we don't always necessarily need an old classic Who monster to be turned into a giant CGI thing, which is one of my kind of like weird things about the two finales that we got from him recently. But I think like I said, I wouldn't be mad either way because I do enjoy his writing. Um, it just was worded very interesting, so I don't know.
Yeah. And I think too, we don't have to force nostalgia in. Like nostalgia where it's authentic and it makes sense, but sometimes the nostalgia feels like clickbait to me and it doesn't feel authentic. And so maybe it's time to just kind of move away from that.
I think the only other thing I wanted to touch on was the War Between the Land and the Sea having a delayed release on Disney Plus. I'm a little disappointed. I'm like, y'all couldn't have figured that out for your last thing, really. But I do think that potentially part of it is Disney wanting to avoid a conflict with Percy Jackson, which I believe comes out early December, and probably Doctor Who, the BBC wanting it to air around Christmas so that they don't miss like their Christmas special technically. Um, so that kind of is a bit disappointing that they're getting it this December and we have to wait till next year. The show looks really good. Like I'm very intrigued by what the show looks like and the little bit of teasers that we've gotten so far, but just kind of bummed that it's going to be another like we have to wait and avoid spoilers and you know, but I don't know.
I'm excited to see it. I think it'll be fun. I don't know what it will do to the overall storytelling of the future seasons and how it will tie in, but I'm excited to see it. I think it's
Yeah,
going to be fun.
it's always great to see more Kate Stewart because she's awesome and I love her.
And also the only I wouldn't call it a gripe, but I do feel like we spent a lot of time building up the unit team. It's time that I would have rather seen spent on Belinda Chandra's character, and more like interactions with her and the doctor. Yeah, it'll be interesting what comes out of it because they really did spend a lot of time kind of hyping up this new series. And I'm all about a spinoff. And I could just smell the spinoff coming when I was like, why are they focusing so much on these random unit like actors in this scene and stuff? And I was like, oh, a spinoff is coming. And sure enough,
Yeah.
the spinoff came, and that would have been fine if they planned for the spinoff to be more, if they had invested more. And now that we don't have, you know, Disney as a co production sponsor, what's going to happen to that spinoff? Is it just like the one off, like a cute little miniseries story, or is it going to fit into the larger Doctor Who universe, like Torchwood or the Sarah Jane Adventures? I
Yeah,
don't remember how many episodes Class had, but it only had the one
one
season.
season. Yeah,
And this
yeah.
won't
I
even
mean,
have a full season. It's just like a limited series.
I wonder if like they had planned to do like anthology series with Unit, which I think would be interesting, especially if they brought in different Unit characters here and there. But I'm sure we will be able to talk more about the War Between the Land and the Sea once it releases in the states. So we'll see. But I don't know. I'm just bummed that they couldn't make a concurrent release work for their last little collaboration here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Overall, I think overall, I'm glad that the BBC has committed to continuing with the show. I'm not worried about our ability to see it in the United States because I feel like that is one of the if they're not able to make an overall deal with a major streamer, the United States is one that they will make sure is covered. But again, I feel bad for fans in smaller countries where they were probably excited to have a legal way to watch the show, and now it's going to be harder for them to keep up with it. But so I'm hopeful about the future of the show. I'm bummed that this Disney Doctor Who thing didn't work out. I mean, I'm sure anybody who follows me saw how excited I was when this got announced because my mind immediately went to like, oh, what can they do in the Disney theme parks with Doctor Who? I still hold that a Space Mountain overlay with Murray Gold's music would have been incredible, but
And
not
that
to be.
again, it's such a missed opportunity. If they had embraced it a little bit longer, if they had measured the success of Doctor Who not based on how many new subscribers the show brought in, because again, overlap, I think that they could have done a lot with this in the long term. It feels like there's no longer that room for the slow burn, right? Like that's something that people just don't have tolerance for. If it's not viral in the first season, then it's not worth it, right? So I'm very disappointed in all the missed opportunities that this collaboration could have produced.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it for sure. Especially again, like I said, it was a known show, it's a known quantity, but they just decided to hold back for whatever reason, and that's too bad because I think like I'm for as much as everybody's like, oh yay, not with Disney anymore. I'm like, I do think that this is Disney making a bad choice because I think if they had been patient, the show would have done really well for them, especially if they had been, you know, if they had brought on the back catalog once it became available, once it was off HBO Max, they would have done really well with it. But
I agree.
it's not to be.
I think having the back catalog was key to the success, and not having that back catalog on the platform. Would it have been nice to have it all together? Yes. But okay, if we got it later, it's still fine. I think they had this opportunity to build another cinematic universe in the same way that they did Star Wars and Marvel. And this could have been really incredible for them. And there's just no patience anymore. And I understand you have to make money and you have to bring in revenue. I get it. But I think this speaks to the larger problem is that streaming is broken. Streaming services are broken. There's not a way to watch all the things that you want in one place. It's more expensive to have streaming services than cable. I think if you wanted all the streaming services that we had back in like the cable days, you're still paying $50 to $60 more for all the streaming services than you would have paid with cable. And cable is also too expensive, right? Television art creativity is no longer accessible for the average viewer, and it's really unfortunate.
Yep, that's for sure. But we'll see where we go from here. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the war between the land and the sea. It looks really cool. I'm excited for that. I'm happy that we know that we'll get more Doctor Who. Eh, you know, it's what's happened. So, but stay tuned to Temple of Geek, and we'll let you know when we hear anything more about where the show's going. For
Maybe
sure.
it'll go to Tubi.
Maybe.
I'll
I think
watch it
if
on
I'm
Tubi.
yeah, I'm like if it is not a streaming service that I already have, I will get that streaming service as long as it's not like $50 a month. It'll be fine.
There,
So
wherever Doctor Who goes, I am willing to cancel subscriptions to pick it up
yeah,
Doctor Who somewhere else.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm bummed, but also, I know the show's going to continue, so that's a good thing. All right, I
What
think
a
that about
depressing
wraps it up.
episode.
Yeah, I mean, back and forth, but I don't know. But, you know,
We love Doctor
it's what
Who
it is.
is
We
the
do love
root of it
Doctor
all.
Who. It's like, I love the show. I want to see it succeed. I'm bummed that this version of the show did not work out. But I'm excited to see what comes next, whatever that
And
is.
in the meantime, if there are things that you're interested in, what do you recommend that people
Oh,
watch while they're on
gosh.
break for Doctor Who?
Well, I mean, you can get into Big Finish for sure, which is the Doctor Who audio dramas. I think they just, I haven't looked too deeply into it, but they just released a new anthology collection of stories with the doctors uh, from Christopher Eccleston to including the War Doctor, or not the, well, yes, the War Doctor and the Fugitive Doctor. Um, I don't know if it includes any of Jodie's stories quite yet because she is still fairly new to the Big Finish world. But there's a lot to explore. Any era of the show, if Christopher Eccleston has come back and reprised his role for Big Finish, David Tennant has reprised his role for Big Finish. I especially recommend the Dalek Universe trilogy from Big Finish with him. That was a really cool story that Jonathan Dorney did, and I've actually been re-listening to it lately, and even knowing the twists and turns in that story, it's really fun to listen to. Um, Matt Smith has not come back, but they do have a couple stories with his doctor. There's a guy whose name is escaping me at the moment, but he does a really incredible impression of Matt Smith that they've done stories with. There's even a short story that they did where he voiced both 10 or both 11 and 12 and they meet, which was really neat. It's only like a 30-minute story. It's cute. It's one of the short trips. Um,
Yeah, and one
they,
of the great things about Big Finish is that whatever you really cared about, and in Doctor Who, almost always there's like a Big Finish
yeah,
spin-off. If you're a really big fan of River Song, you get so many of
yes.
her
So
adventures on
gosh.
Big Finish. I was a big fan of Osgood in,
Mm-hmm.
Unit and like her role in that. There's a spin-off for Big Finish on that. My son was gutted when he discovered that Rory as a Centurion was not a live action spinoff and it was just the
Uh,
Big Finish
yeah,
spinoff because he just wanted to see more of what Rory's life would have been as a Centurion. And so there's so much out there from Doctor Who that you don't have to wait till the new series to consume. I mean, it's been out there, so it's new to us, right? If we haven't listened
yeah,
to it, but definitely
yeah.
recommend.
And there's the books. I even though I haven't been able to get my hands on the most recent set of stories from them, but the Target novelizations that they do of the episodes that they've done for the new episodes are a lot of fun because it's not just like straight word for word what it and beat for beat what's in the TV episode. Like they add more to it, and there's like little extras, like the way that they formatted the Giggle book in particular. I thought was really clever because there's like puzzles and stuff in there, which I think is fun. There's even like a little choose your own adventure part where it's like if you want the Doctor and Donna to go in this door, through that door, down this hallway or whatever, it's like go to this page or that page, which I thought was fun. Um, there's the books, there's the comics, there's the audios, there's watching classic Who.
There's a ton of different, Doctor Who comic runs that sometimes go simultaneously. Right now, Titan Comics has the Prison Paradox #1, which is a story with Ncuti Gatwa and with the 15th Doctor and Belinda Chandra. So if you want more of them, they still exist in comic book forms. He also had some comics with Millie Gibson's character Ruby Sunday. There's more adventures out there.
Yeah, it's like And I'm sure, there's other novels as well that aren't just the novelizations of the episodes. I know they had a couple 15 books come out. I don't know if there's plans for more, but, those stories are out there. Get into classic Who. Yes, it can look cheesy at times, but it's still the show that you love. It's still the characters that you love.
I
Um,
really struggled with the
but
classic, watching it like from the first
sometimes,
Doctor
yeah.
on. I think for
Yes.
me, it was the slang of that time. So the slang in the 1960s and the 70s. But on top of it, like, you know, slang in the UK is very different from slang in the US in the 60s and the 70s, right? So much context was missing for me that I did not understand. It was like they were speaking a foreign language. Like I could not understand the context of what they were talking about. And just the fact that like it's an older, you know,
Yeah.
it's an older production, and so I struggled with it. Where I really had some success as far as like being able to enjoy it and get it is in the collection series of the classic series.
Hmm.
So we have like the collection of all the Cybermen episodes from the classic series,
I
or all the Dalek episodes from the classic series, and it kind of cuts it to those things, and it makes it a little more accessible, because it's like the major arcs, because those were the big stories, without having to know like all these little things leading up to it. So it was easier to digest for me when it came to Classic Who.
Yeah, I will say, if you've been intrigued by the Louvre heist, maybe check out City of Death. Because that's all I could think about. Like everybody else was making,
What is City of Death?
City of Death is a Fourth Doctor and Romana episode where the basic plot is that a man is trying to steal the Mona Lisa so that he can sell it, but the twist is that he has been scattered throughout time, and in order to fund a time machine to bring him back together as a whole, one of his past counterparts gets Da Vinci to paint multiple Mona Lisas, which is then pulled up in his castle. And so the whole idea is, if you steal the Mona Lisa, but you have 6 copies that are verifiably by Da Vinci and verifiably the right age, you can make 6 times as much money. But it's a really fun episode. The character of Duggan is delightful. He's kind of this bumbling private detective who's been sent to, keep an eye on this count and his wife because they think something sketchy's going on with them, and it's delightful. And it's all I could think of when I saw the Louvre heist stuff. So it's a fun episode, and they actually shot it on location in Paris for a lot of it, which is really cool.
Well,
So I
there you
recommend
go.
that one. Yeah.
So there's tons of Doctor Who available still.
Yep. BritBox has the classic episodes. I think there's another service, but it's like a TV station on a service, but it's free, but you just kind of have to catch what's on. But I
I
can't remember if that's
think
Tubi
that
or
we
something
should do
else.
a rewatch starting in
Yes.
2005. I think we should do, as a fandom, everybody starting to rewatch it again. Where? I don't know, because it's
Yeah,
nowhere
I
to
was
be
gonna say, I don't know
streamed.
where we're watching it, but
But it would be
DVDs.
really great to start a rewatch with everybody.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll just have
yeah,
to buy it on Prime Video or something. But
something.
dang, people, just put it on a platform, man.
I know.
So
But I have
rude.
a feeling that we probably won't get it back on streaming until they do make a deal with somebody to continue, you know, putting the show out on their
Globally.
platform. So, because at least now they
Yeah.
can make that packet part of the deal. So I don't know, but we'll see.
Give me my
There's,
Doctor Who back.
I know, because like I was talking to a friend the other day because she was talking about how much she loved the Victoria series. I'm like, oh, have you ever watched Doctor Who? Because Jenna Coleman's amazing in that as well. She's like, I haven't. And I'm like, I wish I could tell you where you could watch it. And now I want to rewatch the Clara episodes, but oh well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up. But it was great talking to you. Even if it
Thank
was a bit
you.
of a bummer of an episode. But
Thank you so much for having me
yeah,
on and letting me
yes.
jabber on.
Oh yeah, always. And that's all for this episode of Temple of Geeks Who Review. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Let us know what you're thinking about all this Disney Plus and where you might think the show winds up next. You can also follow us on social media for more Doctor Who content. We're on Blue Sky and TikTok is at Temple of Geek, and you can join our Discord. You can also visit templeofgeek.com for Doctor Who cosplay guides, episode reviews, news, which will keep you up to date as we hear it, and more. Thanks so much for listening.